Here we will see radio button list server control in ASP.NET. Radio button list control is same as drop-down list, but it displays a list of radio buttons that can be arranged either horizontally or vertically. User can select only one item from the given radio button list. These options are mutually exclusive. The radio button class is derived from the class system.web.ui.webControls. The radio button can be created using the design section by dragging and dropping the control from the ASP.NET toolbar window, or it can also create from the markup section using the following code: radio button, its ID, and run at server. Different properties of radio button list controls are: ID, which is used to gets or sets the programmatic identifier assigned to the server control. Access key property is used to gets or sets the access key that allows you to quickly navigate to the web server control. If the auto postback property is set to true, an auto postback will occur whenever the user selects the item from the list. Back color property gets or sets the background color of the web server control. Border color property is used to gets or sets the border color of the web control. Items property represents the collection of items in the list. Text align property determines how text label is aligned relative to the radio button. Possible values are left and right. Selected item property represents the selected radio button. Selected index property specifies the index number of currently checked radio button. Repeat column property determines the number of columns used to display radio buttons. Repeat direction indicates the direction in which radio buttons must be repeated. It can be horizontal or vertical. Repeat layout determines how radio buttons are formatted. It can be table or flow. Data source identifies the data source for the items listed in the list. Data member identifies the particular table in a data source to bind to the control. Data text field identifies the field from the data source to use for radio button labels. Data value field identifies the field from the data source to use for radio button values. Data text format string is used to gets or sets a format string that determines how data text field is displayed. Cell padding sets the number of pixels between the border and a particular radio button. Cell spacing is used to set the number of pixels between radio buttons in the list. Different methods for radio button list controls are: data bind, which binds a data source to the invoked server control and all its child control. Dispose method enables a server control to perform final cleanup before it is released from the memory. Equals method determines whether the specified object is equal to the current object. Focus method is used to set the focus to a control. On selected index change method raises the selected index change event. OnLoad method raises the load event. And toString method returns a string that represents the current object. Different events for radio button list controls are: data binding, which occurs when the server control binds to a data source. Data bound event occurs after the server control binds to a data source. Disposed event occurs when a server control is released from memory, which is the last stage of the server control lifecycle. Init event occurs when the server control is initialized, which is the first step in its lifecycle. Load event occurs when the server control is loaded into the page object. Pre-render event occurs after the control object is loaded but prior to rendering. Unload event occurs when the server control is unloaded from memory. Selected index change event occurs when the selection from the list control changes between post to the server. And text change event occurs when the text and selected value property changes.